Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. 6 new shows for you yet again this week. I thought maybe stuff would be drying up with the quarantine and stuff, and I guess on networks they are, but for Netflix and the streamers and stuff, they've had stuff in the pipeline for a while, so I assume we're going to get more content from them for still quite a bit. The Quibi, sorry, I was calling it Quibi for so long. Quibi, I don't know what to do with because we did like the whole "is Quibi worth it" thing, but they keep coming out with new shows, and I don't know if they get reviewed on here. I mean, they're all 8-minute shows, but like the Reno 911 reboot is on there. And there's like a Joe Jonas show or something, Cup of Joe, that's like getting some buzz. So I don't know what to do with Quibi, but we'll put that aside for now. Everything coming up on tonight's show is either on streaming or on, in one case, Showtime. I think everything else is on streaming. But first up, the news and reviews. Not too much this week, but want to talk about the cancellations and the renewals, of course, and then also talk about a few shows that are going to be coming that have just been announced. So first of all, everything that's canceled or renewed is stuff I have not watched. It's stuff that is either missed my radar or has been on longer than I've been doing the review show, so I just have missed them. So the renewal is My Brilliant Friend on HBO. I don't know really what that is, but I sort of looked a little bit, and it's a tale of 2 women and their friendship through the ages, and that is getting a 3rd season on HBO, so if you like that, there you go. And then the 2 cancellations, Dare Me on USA, which came out in December. I try to be on top of like every new show that comes on. Somehow this one missed my radar. I don't remember hearing about it, didn't review it, but it's a cheerleading drama on USA. And what I thought was interesting about this is Netflix is a co-producer on this show, which doesn't usually happen for Netflix things. So, but I guess they retained the out of US rights, so they can run it as a Netflix exclusive in like every other country. But obviously, it didn't do well enough to garner a 2nd season, so maybe that was a mistake on their part. And then the other cancellation is Turn Up Charlie on Netflix, which came out before I was doing this show. It was only 1 season, but it was about a year ago. It was like May of last year. And Idris Elba stars in it as a DJ. And this just goes to prove there's so many things on Netflix that like an A-list actor gets his own show and like it gets no buzz. Like I never heard of this show. And I try to keep up on things. So see you later to that show. I mean, whatever. Idris Elba, I'm sure, has better things to do, in the pipeline. But I just think it's weird that like such a top tier star had his own Netflix show that I had no idea about. So that's canceled. One season and done for Turn Up Charlie. So here are some new shows I read about. Well, one is not a new show per se. One is an extension of a show, I guess. The Daily Show, starting, I think it's this coming week, is moving to a 45-minute format, which I think is weird because I don't know what they're going to fill the other 15 minutes with, or if they're just going to, at 11:45, show a repeat of the Daily Show episode you just saw. That's possible. But they canceled Lights Out with David Spade, the 11:30 show, like a month ago, and they stopped filming even before that because of the social distancing. So I guess I don't have Comedy Central anymore, but I assume they've just been putting reruns of David Spade's show in there, obviously to dwindling results. And the Daily Show's stock has risen a lot since the quarantine because, number one, people are home and watching more TV in general. 2, the Daily Show has come to be a trusted news source, even though it is a comedy show. And that dates back to the Jon Stewart years. And 3, because of their high-profile status within the news community, they've been able to get some really choice interviews, even in the social distancing era. So the ratings are up due to all of those factors. So they're going to make it a 45-minute show. I think starting Monday, or maybe it's next Monday. But anyway, so that is coming, which I think is cool. I mean, since I don't have Comedy Central, I mean, I'll see clips sometimes, but I used to watch the show religiously when Jon Stewart was on, and then Trevor Noah took over around the same time that I dropped cable. So I would see things online or some clips, but I haven't seen like a full daily show since probably a few months after Trevor Noah took over. But I think that's cool. Okay, so let's see. There is a competition show for Menudo. They're going to reform Menudo, and I think this could be a lot of fun. I really like. I mean, I don't really watch singing competitions anymore. I used to be super into American Idol. I watched the first season of The Voice, and I like, I still like America's Got Talent. And they have singers on there all the time. But the whole like forming a band thing, I've always sort of liked that concept. Whether it was making the band on, I think that was MTV, or some of the other things they've had with that. And One Direction was formed because everybody auditioned individually on the X Factor in England. So I think the concept is cool. Menudo is known for kicking members out once they turn 18. That's sort of their deal. So, unlike Backstreet Boys or New Kids on the Block or whatever that are, 5 set guys, and these are the guys, whether they're 15 or 40, they're still the same guys. Menudo had constant turnover. Whenever you turned 18, you were out, which, Menudo never had any, like, big U.S. hits, but they were huge in Mexico and some other Spanish-speaking countries. So, it's where Ricky Martin got his start, if you didn't know. So I think it's interesting, and it'll be interesting if they're sticking with that whole thing, like, okay, you got to be 13 when you join or whatever, and once you're 18, you're done. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. And then there's 3 things that are coming up because of the quarantine and because of social distancing. So, number 1, The Bachelor did not film a Bachelorette season for the summer. They were, I guess, in the works, or maybe they had filmed some of it, but they don't have a complete season to run this summer. So they're going to run Bachelor Greatest Hits this summer, which I actually think is a pretty good idea. I don't watch The Bachelor, and I'm not going to watch Bachelor Greatest Hits unless I decide to review it for the show. But I probably won't, though, because I didn't even do The Bachelor Listen to Your Heart. I mean, I guess I could have. It's a new show, and it's on a network, but... and I've done, like, flirty dancing. I've done, like, some of the dating shows lately. But I don't know. The whole Bachelor concept, I've never gotten into. It's not my thing. But I do think it's interesting because, we never see a lot of, like, old clips anymore. Like, it used to be so cool. Like, VH1 always had, like, the clip shows. They would do I Love the 80s, and they would do, they would do, like, the best of... Flavor of Love and like all this stuff. And then of course the Soup always had, clips and stuff, which the Soup, just came back recently. Although I don't know if they shut down during the quarantine or not. Maybe they didn't, because it's really only a few people, there on the crew or whatever. It's not like they have guests or anything. So maybe they didn't. But I watched like the first 3 episodes of the Soup reboot, but I haven't kept up. But I don't know. Like, I used to watch Survivor all the time. I would like some kind of like Survivor Greatest Hits show, I mean, now I guess with the advent of YouTube, you could just pull up clips that are like, here's Bachelor Greatest Hits. So maybe it's not as novel as it would have been 10 years ago, but I think it's still a cool concept. It's an interesting way to, still have some sort of original content, because I assume they'll have, like, was it Chris Harrison as the host, I think. They'll probably have him introducing the clips and stuff, and talk about the setup to, okay, well, this happened, with this person, and here was their backstory, whatever. So, it's sort of an interesting way to repackage something that fans have already seen, but maybe not for a while. The show's been on a long, long time. So, so that's one. Another one is this new social distancing show. It's going to be a scripted show. Jenji Kohan, who created Weeds and Orange is the New Black, she's going to create this for Netflix. It's called I don't know if this is the official title, but, the article I read just has it as the social distancing show. And it's going to be, I guess, probably a lot like the Parks and Recreation reunion was over Zoom, and, a lot of people are doing stuff like that, or it might be similar to, like, what the talk show hosts are doing. Everything's on Zoom now, or, Saturday Night Live was doing, sketches and stuff from their homes. So it may be something similar to that. But I mean, this, as far as I know, will be the first original scripted series that is about social distancing. We've had a few one-off episodes. The All Rise episode on CBS is supposed to air this week. The season finale, which is a social distancing created episode, which I think will be interesting. I haven't seen All Rise since the premiere when I reviewed it for you guys, but I don't know. I might check out the social distancing episode of All Rise. I think it sounds interesting. But this is, as far as I know, the first social distancing series that has been created. So that should be interesting. And then the other one is also sort of a social distancing series, but it's not scripted. And that's going to be Celebrity Watch Party. So Fox is sort of looking for things to fill their voids this summer. Because now that Disney bought Fox Films, Fox, the channel, doesn't even have movies to run like CBS is doing with some old Paramount movies. So, they didn't finish their season of So You Think You Can Dance. They didn't finish their season of one of the kitchen shows. I think it's MasterChef. So they, some of the tent poles of their summer, they no longer have. So they're going to do this thing called Celebrity Watch Party. It's going to be, a few celebrities from their homes talking to, I guess, each other, or maybe just talking to us, the audience, and doing individual bits. I'm not sure yet. But they're going to just talk about, TV shows and movies on TV that were catching their eye this week, and this and that. Now, it's sort of interesting because it's on Fox, so I don't know if it's going to be like kind of Fox heavy, like, oh, I saw, this crazy episode of, I'm trying to think of what's even on Fox anymore, whatever, but oh yeah, on Family Guy this week they did this. I hope it's not that, because that would get real stale. I hope it's more of a on Hulu it's like, to me, I don't know. I don't know if a network is going to love their hosts talking about how great these other shows. Oh, on Apple TV Plus I saw this. It was so great. Da 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 da. Go ahead and watch it. I don't know. To me, that's a little different from somebody coming on The Tonight Show or something to talk about a show that's on Fox, but they're on NBC talking to Jimmy Fallon. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting concept, but I am not sure how biased it's going to be. That remains to be seen. But I don't know. It might be interesting. I'll probably check it out and review it for you guys. I think Rob Lowe is going to be on the first one, who I love. So I wonder also if they filmed any new episodes for his game show for Fox. Something Samurai. Master Samurai? Ultimate Samurai? I forget what the heck it was, but it was like a quiz show, and it aired last summer. Maybe they filmed some already, since it was a summer replacement. But I don't know. I also don't know if it was renewed. Same thing with the Dax Shepard show. Was that Fox or NBC? Spin the Wheel? I think that might have... Yeah, that might have been Fox. I watch things on Hulu, so it's like sometimes I lose track of what network they're on anymore. But those were both series from last summer, so I don't know if they maybe got new episodes made or not. It would be interesting. I love game shows, so I'm excited, by the way, that ABC is coming back with all their summer game shows. But all right, so that's enough of that. Let's talk about the shows, the new shows to review. I have 6 of them for you, like I said. First one is one that's pretty high profile. It just went up a couple of days ago. It's called Normal People, and it was developed for Hulu, but also the BBC 3 to be technical, and it's based on this novel of the same name by Sally Rooney, and Rooney herself is the primary writer of the 12 episodes of Season 1, along with her buddy Alice Birch, I guess. And it stars Daisy Edgar-Jones and Paul Mescal. They are the people in love. She stars as Marianne, he stars as Connell. And it basically takes place in Ireland. It's at a secondary school. They start in high school as the series begins, and then I watched the first 2. Usually I just watch the first episode of things, but this week, for every show, I watched the first 2 episodes, except for the last, not the last 2, but the last 2 I watched, but 2 that we're going to talk about. Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, doesn't have a second episode up yet, so I could only watch 1. And then there's a cooking show on Netflix that I only watched 1 because I feel like it's probably the same every episode. So, but other than that, I watched 2 episodes of every show because I had some extra time this week. So, so I watched 2 of this. They're still in high school, but from what I understand, it moves them through being undergraduate at college, and then maybe even after college too, or you know, like master, going for your master's or whatever, graduate school. I don't know if it goes that far, but they start in high school, and that's where we start. So it's a romantic drama. It's very, very heavy. I had never heard of the book, but I guess it's fairly beloved as a romance series. I don't know if it's a series or just one book, but if they're getting 12 episodes out of it, my guess is it's maybe a series. I don't know. I just read about the book thing. Does it say book series? No, it just says the novel. So I guess the one book takes them all the way through, 5 or 6 years worth. And I guess as the series goes on, it gets a bit tumultuous, and they break up, they make up, they break up, they make up, whatever. And it's basically the ups and downs of this relationship. So the first 2 episodes, really, though, they're just kind of getting to know each other. They're on the down low because they're from 2 sort of different status classes. It's pretty classic stuff, really. But she's in love with him, and he's so cool, and he's trying to hide her from everybody and whatever. So it's, I think, a good show if you're into the romantic drama. I think it is a well done one, but it is very generic. I think the title is most generic of all. Like, normal people means nothing to me. Even if they called the show Irish people or something, or Irish normal people, you would at least know, okay, well, at least I have a locale now. And I understand the point is, unless I'm reading into it, but I would think the point of calling it normal people is everyone can relate to these people. They're just run-of-the-mill, normal people that happen to fall in love. This could be you. This could be your sister. This could be your mom. Like, whatever. So my guess is that was the point of calling it normal people, but it's just such a generic title, and I found a lot of the things in the show to be above average for sure. First of all, the scenery is really nice, but the 2 leads, great actors. They have really good chemistry together, and they really are selling it. You really believe that these people are in love, and it's sort of taboo a little bit with their social standings and whatever. And you kind of feel for the girl because the guy's kind of a jerk and whatever. Okay, and that's all normal. We can all relate. But it's just like, I don't know. To me, you can come up with something more original than that for the title of your show. Even like Difficult People on Hulu. Okay, well, so I know going into that show that this show's about people that are maybe a little bit annoying. Difficult people, normal people that's meaningless to me. So right away I was a little turned off by that. So it did take me a little bit of time to kind of get involved with these characters. So I am glad I watched the second episode. Because really by the first episode, not that much even happens. Like, I feel like dragging this out over 12 episodes from one novel might not have been the wisest choice. But, one thing I like as far as their acting goes is that they do convey a lot of what they're thinking with sort of their looks or their actions that I'm sure the novel writes in great detail, and then she was thinking whatever, I think they do convey it well, but 12 half-hour episodes, and I think they're all even longer than that. I think they're like 35-minute episodes or something. One novel taking up 6 hours of time. They tried that with The Hobbit, right? But no, like, I think that the show moves too slowly, for sure. But, that being said, I think if you like romantic dramas, this is a very well done one. I think you will fall in love with these characters. I think you will definitely fall into their spell and you will relate, which is the point. So I think it's not amazing. It's not really for me. I don't think I'll stick with it. I'm not going to watch the other 10, I don't think. Um, but as far as romantic dramas go, I think it is well done. So in that, I will give it a B plus. But I do think it's too slow. I think 12 episodes was probably too much for this type of thing. But yeah, and especially if you read the book, I mean, it's always a good sign when the writer of the book writes the show or the movie. So then okay, well, they have their characters in mind. So I think that's always a good thing. So we're going to move next to Netflix. We're actually going to bounce back and forth with Netflix, but I thought this would be a good one to do second because it's also a high school romantic show. This is a comedy show. It's produced and created by Mindy Kaling, or co-created, I should say, by Mindy Kaling. But this takes a more comedic spin on it, but it has a lot of similar themes because the girls in this are all sort of like nerds and they want these dudes. They sort of have a pact, like, okay, let's get these boyfriends. I've selected boyfriends for all of us that are like sort of within our social standing, but then she falls for somebody that is above her standing. So it's like, in basic concept, these shows are very similar, which proves that it's a pretty universal concept. But it's called Never Have I Ever, and I will first of all watch anything that Mindy Kaling does. I love her. I read her book. I love the Mindy Project, which I just got, by the way, on Blu-ray. You can get it now for like $35, the whole series on Blu-ray. But this stars an unknown actress, at least to us, but she is a Tamil actress. So she is, Indian in nature, and she comes from Canada. Her name is Maitre Ramakrishnan, something like that. I apologize. That's, I'm sure, a horrible butchering of the name. But she is the star of it, and she's had a real bad year. Her dad died at one of their school concerts, and then she became paralyzed for a few months. And, now she's sort of back, but she's still kind of a loser and a nerd and all of this, So it goes from there, and her friends are trying to basically get laid, at some point this school year. I think they're all juniors, but I'm not sure if they ever really say specifically, but they all certainly look about 16 or so. But yeah, boy, I mean, this show, first of all, like everything Mindy does, this show busts through stereotypes, while still holding a realistic tone. Like, the great thing about Mindy's writing is that she is sort of a stereotype in some aspects, but she also busts through that glass ceiling, or whatever you want to call it, at every turn. So this series has a lot of, sort of stereotypes that we see in every kind of high school show, not specifically with Indian Americans, but just in general, oh, the nerdy girl, she is a nerd and she looks like this and she acts like this. Those stereotypes are all there, but they're sort of all tilted on their ear, like everything Mindy does, So I think this show has some sharp comedy to it. This girl, she plays Devi, that's the character name, is a great actress. She is a star in the making. She is so funny. And all the cast, really, and they're all unknowns. I don't know anybody in this cast, except for well, okay, any of the kids in the cast. John McEnroe is the narrator, and he plays himself. He plays, which is funny because he will talk about some of her anger issues. He'll throw in something like, oh, I can relate, or whatever. And then Niecy Nash plays her therapist. So some of the adult characters I know and love. I mean, I wouldn't say I love John McEnroe, but he does a good job as the narrator. But I love Niecy Nash. Speaking of Reno 911, so so that part is good. But the kids, I don't know any of the kids, and they're all like really good. You can tell, or you get the sense, at least, that they really are all friends, that they've had some turmoil. The one is keeping a secret boyfriend because she already has a boyfriend when, the gal comes in and says, okay, like, I've figured out boyfriends for all of us. She has to, like, hide her boyfriend. So again, I watched 2 episodes of this. I'm glad I did. Got a little bit of a bigger picture of it. I really like this show. I think it's very funny. I don't know if the whole being paralyzed thing is necessary. Like, it gives her 2 very, very interesting and outcast type things right up front. Her dad dies at the school performance, and then she gets paralyzed right away, but only temporarily, and they never really explain why. Like, John McEnroe says in the voiceover, like, she didn't really understand how it happened. She doesn't know how she, got healed. So it's like, I don't know, but they bring it up a lot. Oh, you're the girl that got paralyzed. Oh, you're the girl whose dad died. I didn't think she needed both of those things. I think one would have been sufficient. So that's a little threw me off a little bit. But other than that, I think this is a great show. It's hilarious. It's a little dirtier than things Mindy Kaling has done, but it's not nearly as dirty as a lot of things on Netflix. So it sort of straddles that. Like, when the Mindy Project went to Hulu, they still played it pretty straight, as if it were a network sitcom. I don't even think they really cursed at all, other than the stuff they were already saying when they were on Fox. Here, there's definitely a little more cursing, but it's not like some of the things on Netflix. It's like every third, word is like the F-bomb. It's like, oh, ha, 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 we can get away with it because we're Netflix. That, to me, that doesn't hold water. Like, I don't really care about that. Give me good content. Don't just swear at me. So there's a little more swearing here than normal, but not that much. So I think you could probably watch this as a family show. And even the stuff about, like, sex isn't necessarily like, I need to get laid. Like, I just finished up season 1 of Sex Education on Netflix, which is not only total, language course language, but the topic is sex. So it talks about sex constantly. I would be very embarrassed to watch that show with my parents, but never have I ever. Not so much. I don't think. If you can watch, John, it's very John Hughesy. It really is. It's it curses like Breakfast Club maybe a little bit, but the characters are real. Like, you feel like you really do know these people. I don't understand why they had to give her 2 big ailments going into this school year. That, to me, was a little overkill. But the show is funny, and this gal is a breakthrough star. Should I try her name one more time? Because I want to give her due. It's Maitri or Maitrie Ramakrishnan. Ramakrishnan, I think, is her last name. There you go, Ramakrishnan. But yeah, I think she's a breakout for this, and I would look for her in the future for sure. Especially, if Mindy's going to keep creating projects and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if she was one of Mindy's, like, go-tos after this show. So never have I ever. I'm going to leave it with an A-. I thought it was very, very well done. Some flaws for sure, but really good. So up next, we go to Showtime, Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. I never watched the original Penny Dreadful, so from everything I've read, this is very, very, like, out of the Penny Dreadful realm. It's sort of in name only type of thing, and we do see a little bit of, like, I know enough about Penny Dreadful to know that, like, okay, there's a few threads hanging on here, and we see in the beginning how this creature gets her powers and stuff, and that seems like kind of a callback to the Eva Green version of Penny Dreadful. But this version stars Natalie Dormer, hot off of course, Game of Thrones. This is her next big project, and a big thing for Showtime, because Penny Dreadful was pretty popular, and then I think it just sort of got canceled with no warning. So if memory serves, because I had a couple friends that watched it, I think it ended kind of on a cliffhanger because they didn't know it was ending. But anyway, this one advances about 50 years from the original to 1930s, late 1930s, California, Hollywood specifically, and this is an era that I love. I'm not even sure I would like the first Penny Dreadful because, like, I don't know, late 1800s stuff, 1880s, 1890s. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I've seen some stuff that I've liked, but the era, like, right around, like, the 20s, 30s, like, especially in Hollywood, dude, that's my era. In fact, I just asked a friend if I could borrow L.A. Confidential because I've never seen it, and it, apparently, it takes place right around this time as well in California. So, in LA, obviously. So I'm excited to watch that too. But so I was actually kind of looking forward to this. I thought this would be maybe interesting, and there's some interesting things about it. But essentially, it infuses all this like Mexican heritage stuff with the plot, and basically there's a big conflict going on between this Mexican folklore deity, Santa Muerte, who is, taking care of the dead essentially, and also a guide to the great beyond, and then her spiritual sister, Magda, who is Natalie Dormer's character. She is a demon who can take the form of anybody that she wants, which is interesting. We see it play out a couple of times in the first episode. Now, again, this one I can only watch the first one because that's all that's up so far. It's on, I think, Sundays, so the next one will premiere, this weekend. But it was a 68-minute show or something. So it was over an hour for the pilot. So, and we know a couple people from this. Nathan Lane is one of the police officers tasked with figuring out what's going on. He's basically the veteran officer, and he's got Santiago, his sort of rookie. Daniel Zavado plays him, and he is the LAPD's first Mexican American detective. So that lends itself to that whole history, and that's of course why they put him on the case. But Rory Kinnear is here as well. We've seen him in a bunch of different things. No relation, I don't think, to Greg Kinnear, but he's played Bill Tanner in a bunch of the recent James Bond films, for example. And so, he pops up, and he's good here. So, my biggest issue with this is that I don't even think they need all of the Penny Dreadful stuff. They don't really need... Like, I think this is an interesting enough thing without all of the supernatural stuff going on. It seems like overkill because the problem then becomes they've introduced us to so many characters in this first episode. There's so many plots going on. I couldn't really keep up. And I just think it might have been better served. I get that they wanted to do the Penny Dreadful name, and maybe as we go along it will shift more into that gear. But to me, I don't think they needed the whole like shape-shifting thing. Like Natalie Dormer really isn't even in it all that much. The character is because she keeps shape-shifting. But Dormer herself, being billed as the star is true. But like I think there were other people in the show more than her, sort of because of everything going on. But there is a really cool fight shootout at the end of the episode, and I thought it was shot very well. I thought it was interesting, but it took a while to get there, and I was a bit confused as to what's going on because they kept introducing all these new characters, and they would be in scenes just standalone without anybody else. So you're like, okay, now I have to figure out how these people connect. Sometimes they would show you, sometimes they wouldn't. There's still people I'm like, I don't know how this person relates at all to this show, So it was definitely a bit of a mixed bag for me. Normally, I would say this probably isn't something I would continue watching because I'm not going to give it that favorable of a grade. But because of the era and because I do have such interest in it, and like I love, there's because it's right before World War II. There's like a lot of Nazi symbolism going on. There's some Germans that are, heading this sort of, white power sort of group. So I find this era very interesting. So I think I will continue watching Penny Dreadful City of Angels, but overall, the pilot episode didn't wow me, so I'm going to leave it for now with a C plus. And then we'll see where it continues. C plus is like kind of on that line for me. Like sometimes I could see watching more of it, and other times I'm like, maybe not. All right, so there's still 3 more to go. I try to keep these TV news and reviews under 45 minutes, and we're about 35 minutes now, so let's keep moving here. Defending Jacob is next. This is on Apple TV Plus, and this caught my eye because A, it's Chris Evans, he's the star of it, and B, is it the creator or no, not the creator, the director is Morton Tidham, who I was like, I know that name. Why do I know that name? Well, he directed The Imitation Game, which is an amazing movie, and he also directed Passengers, which is, I think, a very underrated movie, the Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence movie. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely in on this. What do we got? This movie is really good. Dude, Apple TV Plus, or this show, I should say, is really good. Apple TV Plus is really getting it together. You know, they started with a semi-interesting slate of shows. Some of them were pretty good. Some of them were bad. None of them were amazing, though. And then in the last week, we've had the Beastie Boys story, which is the best movie I've seen all year. I gave it an A. And then now we have this Defending Jacob, which is really compelling. So it is a mini-series, and I think in total there's going to be 8 episodes, but they're doing the Apple TV Plus thing where they put up 3 episodes, and then each week is a different one. So there was 3 up when I watched it. I think a 4th one went up yesterday. But like the other shows this week, I watched the first 2 episodes of this. So I watched 2 full hours of this. And essentially the story is Chris Evans plays, what's the character's name? Andy Barber. And he is a detective. And right in the first couple of scenes here, we see one of his son's classmates murdered. We don't see him get murdered, but they find him in the woods. And he is one of the classmates of Chris Evans' son, who is played, by the way, by Jaden Martell, who was in Knives Out with Chris Evans. And I love this kid. He was in St. Vincent. He was in The Book of Henry, which was an uneven movie, but he was really good at it. He's a really good young actor. So I'm excited to see him here. He plays Jacob, the son. And at the end of the first episode, we realize through some message boards on the internet that Jacob may be the one that killed this kid. So in the second episode, we sort of follow up with that. Chris Evans gets taken off the case because obviously of, I forget the technical term for it, but you obviously can't have, a detective whose son is maybe involved with this, being the lead on the case. So it sort of goes back and forth between the present day trial with Chris Evans defending Jacob, the title of the show, to flashback basically to the main story is the flashback to what happened. How it happened. Do we believe this kid? Do we know what happened? No, we don't. Okay. And it is going to be a real good mystery. This is one kind of like the morning show where, like a lot of shows on this review show that I do, I will watch the first episode, review it, and then I sort of set it aside. And even if I really loved it, I'm not going to go back to it really until I sort of catch up on some other things. Like I'm just basically finishing up my series from the 2018-2019 season before I can really even start the current season that's just wrapping up. So, a lot of those. But the morning show was compelling enough, and I think I only gave it like a B. The morning show was like an average, well, it's above average, but it had a lot of problems. But the morning show was one that I actually finished the whole thing. Every Friday when it came up, the new episode, I was like, all right, I'm watching the morning show. And I think this is going to be like that, Defending Jacob, because I'm really interested in what happens to this story. And I don't really want to forget any details since it is a murder mystery. So Chris Evans is great. I think of all the people from the Avengers, not counting Robert Downey Jr., obviously, because he was so famous beforehand. I think Chris Evans is probably the best actor of the bunch. Chris Hemsworth is probably the most charismatic. And Mark Ruffalo is probably the best dramatic actor. He's probably a better dramatic actor than Chris Evans, at least judging by like Spotlight and things like that. But Chris Evans is also so much younger. I mean, I think in when he's Mark Ruffalo's age and whatever 10, 15 more years. I mean, I think Chris Evans is really going to be an A list performer. He's great in this. He really is. And in some of the other things I've seen him in too. But I think they've got a great cast here. Who else? Michelle Dockery plays the wife, who I don't really recognize that much, but she was in Downton Abbey, so she's obviously famous. But J.K. Simmons is recurring. He has not shown up yet. I'm interested to see J.K. Simmons, of course, as I always am. So he'll be in one of the other episodes, I guess, as a recurring character. But boy, this was compelling. It was dramatic. It was shot very well. It was like, very sort of ominous and dark. And, the kid is 14, Jacob, and you really believe it. He is kind of a jerk. He talks back to his parents. Like, in the first couple of scenes, you really want him to, be smacked or something. He's just such a kind of a jerky kid. But do you really think that he killed this kid? I don't know. I don't think he did, but I don't know. So I am very intrigued what happens next. This is one of those types of shows that sort of lives or dies by the ending. So it's hard to give a grade to shows like this from just 1 or 2 episodes. So I'm going to leave Defending Jacob right now with an A-, but I could easily see bumping that up to an A or maybe even an A+ by the end of the run. It's one of the best things I've seen all year for sure. Just depends on where it goes from here, So let's move back to Netflix for the last 2 things. I'll try to get through these pretty quickly with the time and everything. But they're both sort of like stoner type things. So take these with a grain of salt because I'm not really a stoner. I have partaken, more so with my ex than anything. So I haven't done it in a while. But I imagine these are both shows that would be better enhanced if you were high or something, especially the first one, Midnight Gospel. It's an adult animated show on Netflix, created by the Adventure Time dudes, and Duncan Trussell is the creator of this, and it comes from a podcast he has, where he sort of gets into heavy conversations and topics with people, and essentially he's like I don't know him, but he's like a Joe Rogan podcast guest, so they talk a lot about similar things. Joe Rogan I like his stand-up. I like some of the things he says, but the podcast is too extreme for me. He goes way too in-depth, and I think his opinions are too extreme for what I believe. So, so somebody in that camp, I also am sort of like, all right, let's take this with a grain of salt maybe. So essentially the basic plot is that the lead character, Clancy, is basically like this alien, and he has like a space podcast essentially where he travels to different worlds, different Earths, different planets, and interviews people on those planets about their philosophies and stuff like that. So that's the basic gist. In the first episode, he goes to one of the Earths, and Dr. Drew Pinsky is playing the president. And so essentially he gets there, and then the bulk of the conversation from that point on is taken directly from the podcast, directly from interviews he's had with these people. So for the Dr. Drew one, for example, they're talking a lot about the legalization of drugs, and in the episode, the president is sort of having a war on drugs, so to speak. There's like protesters at the White House or whatever, but also there's an alien invasion, it's a zombie apocalypse. I'm sorry, and so then, so the rest of the episode is like a mix of them running away from the zombies or killing zombies, and then going right back to the interview discussions, like die zombie die. Yeah, I find that people that are more susceptible to, and it's just like, okay, this if I was interested in this, I would just rather listen to the podcast. I don't need the psychedelic montages. I don't need the atmosphere. I don't need the forced and phony plot. Now, is it daring? Is it unlike anything that's out right now, that's on television, that's on streaming? Yes, I will give it points for originality, and that's why I'm not going to give it a horrible grade, but I'm also not going to give it a good one. I would rather just listen to the podcast interview, and I like Dr. Drew. I like what he has to say usually, so this is one where I might have actually, listened to the whole podcast. Now I don't really need to because I feel like I've heard, a lot of what was said, but I think it's an interesting concept to take the interview and just do it that way. It actually reminds me a lot of the Dr. Katz show back on Comedy Central in the 90s with the Squiggle Vision animation, from Jonathan Katz, because a lot of that was just sort of improv conversations with the guests, and so it's sort of a similar concept in the fact that, okay, this is taken from impromptu conversations. It just happens to be, in this case, from an interview podcast, and they're putting it on a cartoon show. But it's way too trippy. It's, they're trying way too hard to be like, oh, hey, this will be cool for people that are baked. I don't know. So I will never watch this stupid thing again. I do think it's stupid, but it is original, and I have to give it props for that. But I didn't get the point of it. Just listen to the interview, or make something that has at least something more to do with the topics, not a zombie apocalypse. So this one I also watched 2 episodes of. The second episode was a gal I was not familiar with. Let me see if I can get her name. Anne Lamont. I don't know who that is, but she's a political activist. But I guess she was on the podcast, and so they're talking about, family stuff or whatever, and it just didn't, to me, it didn't gel at all. But I will give it points for originality, so I leave Midnight Gospel with a C. Just for the originality of it. I think everything else is sort of, I don't know, a little bit out there. So the next one is another weed one, and it's more specifically weed. It's called Cooked with Cannabis. This dropped on 4/20, obviously. Thank you, Netflix. But I didn't get to it until this week. But this one I only watched 1 episode of because it's a competition show. It's a cooking show. And it's hosted by Khalees, who we, of course, love from My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard. And then Leather Stores is the other person. I don't know who that is. But they're the 2, hosts of it. And they also judge the food along with a panel of guests. So the first episode had Ricky Lake, Mary Lynn Rice-Cobb, Joe Coy, and Elle King, the singer, and Rob Schneider's daughter. It's funny because 2 of the 4 on the judging panel, the celebrity guest judging panel, had never had edibles before. So this was a new, they'd been high, but they'd never had edibles before. So it was a new experience for them, which I thought was interesting. But so basically, it's a $10,000 competition. They take 3 chefs that, I guess regularly cook with THC and such, and they have them do an appetizer dish, a main, and then a dessert. And they make them separately. The judges eat them, and then they start the next round. So it's an interesting concept. So they have, I think, a half hour for the appetizer, 45 minutes for the main, and then another half hour for the dessert. And so we see them all cooking. They are all timed. The judges are all just sitting there. It's nice because then it doesn't make anybody super, super high on the judges panel because they have okay, we've eaten the appetizer, we're a little bit high from that, but now we have 45 minutes before the main course is made. And they all get to watch the people do it in the kitchen. They get to watch them go for the different, spices and the different things. And they have whole cabinets filled of different strains of marijuana and, different types of THC and different, honey infused THC and, all these different things that they can use to cook with. And look, I don't really cook, but B, I don't really do edibles. I've done them I think twice in my life, or maybe 3 times. So I don't really. This was all like kind of new to me and a bit fascinating. I have to say. There's a couple things that I thought could have been improved upon. But in general, I don't watch cooking competition shows, so I don't have a ton to like compare this one to. But I did like it. One of the things I really liked is that I liked the way that the chefs were sort of explaining to camera as they were doing it what they were doing, but they never went too far as to say like, okay, they used this much of this. The only things they ever did was they would tell the judges how much THC was in each one, or how much CBD oil was in each dish, and where it was. They'd be like, oh, it's in this compote here, or oh, it's in the the garnish, or or whatever. So I thought that was kind of cool. I like the idea of the judges panel as well. Now, I started the beginning of the second episode, but I didn't recognize who any of the guest judges were, so I was like, all right, I'm not as interested in this as like the Ricky Lake episode. I think Khalees is a really good host, which, who knew? The gal from the Milkshake song, is a great host. And the other guy is good too, and I like that they are sort of talking amongst themselves while the people are doing it. And I imagine most cooking shows are like this. I don't know. But again, I don't watch a lot of them. One thing is I think it's actually too short. So each episode is about a half hour, but they're all like about 35, 38 minutes. I think this actually could have been a full like 45-minute show, which means if it were on a network, it would be an hour. I think because they sort of tell you what dish they're doing. They put it up on the screen real quick. And it's Netflix, so you could pause it if you want, and kind of write it down or whatever. But I don't know. I would have liked maybe a little more description. Not that it's a cooking how-to show. It's a competition show. But some of the dishes looked freaking good. And I would, even if they didn't have THC or pot or whatever, I feel like I would still make them. Like the one dude made a burger that looked amazing. So I liked that. It definitely made me hungry, which I think a good cooking show should do. But yeah, I think it should be longer. And also, I get that it's on Netflix, but like, there was too much. The negative is there's too much cursing for sure. But also, there's a good amount of like weed jokes. Not as many as I expected, actually. But still a bit much. But this is something this is one of these shows where I was like not really looking forward to it because like I don't smoke that much. Like I don't really care about edibles. I don't care about cooking with it, like whatever. But the stuff they made I thought was pretty fascinating. I really enjoyed watching this show. I think they could tweak some of it a bit. The judges I think are also too nice. Everything was pretty much a rave. They were like, oh, this is so great. Da, 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 da. I think they could have been a little harsher on the contestants. But overall, I enjoyed Cooked with Cannabis, and I give it a B. So that is the show for this week. I know we ran a little over the time that I like to. Back in the day, these ran an hour, but that's when there was a lot more news to cover. So next week, there's already a bunch of shows that went up just yesterday on the streamers. So I think there's a bunch of shows out there that I already am going to do for next week. But we'll see what else comes up in the next week. I usually don't even look at what new shows are on until like Wednesday, and then I'll be like, okay, and then I figure out what shows I'm going to watch for the week. But next week we'll have another TV news and reviews for you. I don't know if it'll be back on Thursday like usual. I have a lot of things in the pipeline, which I like. But I've got my movie reviews tomorrow. Tuesday's the season finale of The Connor, so we've got that. Wednesday's Masked Singer. Dead to Me Season 2 premieres next week, and I would like to get a Season 1 review up with my buddy Melissa, because I know she loves that show just like I did, before Season 2 goes up. So I'd like to do that at some point this week, too. I have a Dan Does Disney coming up with Tim. We're going to talk about Make Mine music from the 40s. So there's a lot of stuff on the horizon. There will be no shortage of quarantine videos for a little while, which is good. But we'll be back tomorrow with the movie reviews for the week. So until then, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Bye.